Too many sales teams think they need more leads when the real problem is that they have not clearly defined the companies they should be pursuing. In this episode of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, Kevin Lawson and Sean O'Shaughnessey break down how to build a stronger ideal client profile, sharpen your value proposition, and stop wasting time on prospects that were never likely to buy. You'll hear why your best customers may already hold the clues to your next best opportunities. Stay with us because this conversation will help you turn a messy lead list into a focused sales strategy.
For every seller out there who's doing some of their own marketing or sales leader who's thinking about how to open new markets, building a leads list can be a daunting task. And I want to unpack that a little bit today because there's a few things I want to challenge everyone listening to this podcast to think about. And they're kind of on trend and on brand for me. They're simple, but important and repeatable. I want to create repeatable systems for you. Quick story here. I hold that every business has a leads problem. I don't care if you are wildly successful, really struggling, or somewhere in the middle, you have a leads problem. Now, leads problems can show up in three different ways. You can have none, which is the really struggling version of that. You can have a lot of leads and not know how to prioritize them. That's you're wildly successful, like you're trying to find people to put in front of the person to close the lead. Or you can have a lot that are the wrong leads. This is that kind of middle of the road where you're doing a lot of estimating and quoting and talking, but nothing's really coming through or fitting well once it gets in the one column. I say all that because the simple thing that most people in sales leadership, ownership, or something don't do well or effectively is building your ideal client profile, your ICP, it's aligned to your UVP, your unique value proposition, or also called your value proposition. And the big miss that everybody, in my opinion, has that are either struggling to attract the right customers or have virtually nobody coming at them is they more than likely haven't, number one, documented it. If you haven't written down in painstaking detail, who do I want to attract and sell to? I want to challenge you to press pause on this. If you're on the road, please don't write while you're driving, but consider carving out time to do your demographic definition so that you can say, I best serve, my ideal client is typically 50 people, 50 million, 50% this, 50, whatever your number is. Define them by their demographic at the company level. I say that because there is lots of publicly available free information where you can find how big that market is. Now, if you want to talk about TAM, SAM, or total addressable market, service obtainable market, you can go back and do some research on those other acronyms. But for the ideal client profile, I want you to go find things like Data Axle at the public library. If you pay for a service like Apollo or KnowledgeNet or Seamless or Zoom, if you're paying for a service, this kind of data should inform your entire lead building list. If you have customers, find your best ones and go look them up on Zoom or Crunchbase or whoever. Find their demographic data. How long have their executives been in place? What kind of software do they run behind the scenes? How many employees? How many locations? Whatever the how many, we're really just counting. This is a bean counter kind of discussion here. Find out the demographic of your ideal client. Then the buying signals. You can mix this with psychographic thinking, like why do people buy in this market? What are they trying to solve? What are some of their company goals and company strategies? But the high level here is trying to understand the psychology behind the company profile that buys your solution. I say all that because finding those companies allows you to start figuring out who else that you already know fits your ideal client. So if you have a really empty pipeline or a pipeline full of bad prospects that don't really align to that, it's easy to pick them out. Here's a fun example, and Sean, you'll appreciate this since we're both sports nuts. I will never say I'm a sports guru because I do not do well with sports trivia. But for anyone listening, if I say a 7-footer and a 6'8" guy are walking down the street, what do you expect they play as a sport?
Basketball.
And why is that?
Because basketball players have an innate advantage in the game. that are tall.
And they're tall. You right, that guy's tall. If I see a 6'6", grizzled 250-pounder, 300-pounder walking down the street, I'm gonna go, wow. Could be a lineman, could be a linebacker, could be a winger on a rugby team, but they're probably playing something. They're definitely working out. I bet a logical question I could ask them is, hey, you look pretty fit. Are you a professional athlete? In the same way, if somebody's a 100-person company with the CEO who's been in place for less than 2 years and their second generation, I might be able to say, hey, I see that you've been in the seat now for 2 years. What's changed since you took over? All of a sudden, I can look at a person at an ideal company and start to generate what I think might be impactful to start a conversation. People without lead definition, without ideal client profile definition, say things like, man, I can sell this to anybody. Everybody needs my product. I am the Google of this industry. This is a 20 billion, trillion, cajillion dollar industry. Everybody's my customer. This is a disruptive product. When in actuality, the way you market it or the way they market it could actually have you at a very small portion of that market. And for all intents and purposes, you've heard Sean and I say in the past, if you've got more than mid-single digits percentage of a market, you've got a huge market share. Let that sink in. If you're a $10 million company in HVAC or construction trades or car sales, you are relatively small. And I say all that to say this. In the past 6-ish minutes, I have talked about ideal client profile and why this is so important to building a lead list. It's foundational. And these are things that you as a listener can solve for yourself before lunch. Sean, I have just talked a lot. What did I miss?
I don't know. I zoned out as soon as you talked about two tall guys walking down the street and you walk up to them and you said, I bet you play basketball or something like that. I can't remember exactly what you said. And I remember a story of my favorite NBA basketball player of all time. Now, my favorite NBA basketball player of all time is somebody that most people they don't think is their favorite one. It's a basketball player that's actually shorter than Kevin is on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. So Dave DeBusschere played for the New York Knicks. He was only 6'6", and Kevin, if I'm not mistaken, you're 6'7". So you got him by an inch. Dave DeBusschere won 2 national championships in the NBA, played back in the 70s. And he tells a story that he would get this all the time. He'd be walking around the streets of New York with his teammates going out after a game or whatever. And somebody would come up to him and said, I bet you guys play basketball. And he laughed and he would go, absolutely not, sir. We are jockeys for dinosaurs. I say that because I think, first of all, it's all I could think of after Kevin started talking about that was that very favorite story of mine. But I also say it because you need to ask more questions than just that first one. You need to dig in a little bit. And so if you think you know about your customers, so Kevin was talking about ideal client profile. What I like to say when we have this conversation is, who are the 5 companies that you sold to that were just fun to sell to? They got your product, your service, your capability, your offering immediately. They just got excited about it. They were easy to sell to. They paid list price. They just bought fast and well, and you were really happy to have them. They are probably your ideal client profile. They are probably the best customer for you to find more of. Would you be happy if you had 40 other companies just like those 5? So if that's the case, I'm going to give you a little hint. Go talk to them. Go ask them what they do, not at a high level. Yeah, we form metal, or we're an injection molding company. You want to do more than that. How do you make money? How do you lose money? What are the challenges that are happening in your market from your perspective? Yes, I could go to ChatGPT and they'll tell me the answer as well. But what do you say are the challenges in your market? What are the things that are hard for you to do? What could I do better to service you as a vendor? What could I do better to help your business grow? Now, you might get some really valuable insights on how you can sell more to those 5 companies, but you also will probably learn a lot about that industry. And now that you've got those 5, and you can find that list using all those tools that Kevin talked to you about, other ways of finding the list, now you need to reach out to them. And now you know some insights into their industry, into how they work, into what's important to them, because your good customers told you that information. Now you can frame your value proposition to go after that customer and talk to them in a way that makes sense only to them, because that is the value proposition to that ideal client profile. Once you know that list, once you know that what you do for them, once you know what makes them tick, what gets them excited and makes them mad, now you can approach your people in a way that makes sense. I'm also going to tell you, since most of the people that listen to our podcast work in companies that don't have greater than 50% market share, I'm just going to make that assumption. Very few companies do have 50% market share. So I'm going to say that most of you don't. Here's the reality. You have more people to sell to than you can possibly imagine. You need to whittle your ideal client profile down. It needs to be smaller. If you can effectively sell and ship to every company in the world, but that means you have 10,000 companies to go sell to, and you have 3 salespeople, it's time to focus. You can only sell to so many companies a week. Figure that number out. I don't know how long your sales cycle is, but how many customers can you acquire, can you sell to in X number of days, X number of months? You can only process so many orders so fast. You can only grow your business by so much without having to buy a new building. Whatever your limitations are, that's your list. Figure out how to bring that number down and focus it. Now, it'd be reasonable to say you could add 100 companies this year. It's a reasonable number to say. Then make a list of 500 companies. That means you only got to close 20%, which is surely is fantastic if it's that focused. But just do 500 companies because you can only do 100. Now, that doesn't mean you stop at the end of 500, although maybe you do. Maybe that's all the growth that you can possibly do. You can't buy enough buildings. You can't buy enough raw material to satisfy more than 500 companies. But whatever the case may be, you need to be realistic. And when the list is too big, then you trim and you take companies off. You revise that ideal client profile to say, let's just pretend you're in St. Louis, Missouri. When you're listening to this, nope, I can't sell to New Jersey because that's too far away. Nope, I can't sell to Indiana because all I can sell to is Illinois and Missouri. That's all I can do because there's more than enough companies for me to do this. It is a waste of time. I am driving by 45 customers on my way to that one company in Evansville, Indiana. If you're not familiar with the geography there, from St. Louis to Evansville, Indiana, you barely get to go across the state of Illinois. You go across and you're a mile in and a mile out. It's that tight. The reality is, if you can only sell to this many companies because you can only service this many companies, don't be going to California, right? Stick close to home. Don't call on the company that makes this instead of that, because that is what you need to sell to. You only want to sell to those companies that when you walk in the door and you say, this is my offer, this is what I can do for you, and they get incredibly excited, that's when it's time to do it. Kevin, I just used up the rest of our time, but I'll let you finish off.
It's good when we have these longer kind of statements about how to exceed, excel, and succeed as a seller in a modern post-COVID sales market. It's still important to keep the foundations firm. And just to recap those, it's ideal client profile, unique value proposition or value proposition, messaging, and market share. Because all the things that we focus on to get our list built to the list size we can serve allows us to then take this to the next stage, which is building that lead list. And that lead list is made up of people at those businesses that buy from us. If we typically call on operations, call on the VP or director of operations. If we call on CEOs, it's a CEO. We have to find our sweet spot and then lean into it. That's how we make a successful year out of a leads problem. And again, back to the leads problem, the 3 lead problem again, 3 types of leads. I don't have enough. I've got too many, or all the ones I've got are wrong. All comes back to defining the people you can serve, talking about the value, how you can serve them, and then finding the people that can buy from you at those places that you can serve well. It makes your life easier when you can get really specific on what it is you do and why you pick your head up off the pillow every morning. When you have that kind of alignment, there's nothing you can't do and no number you can't grow to, because you just put rocket fuel on your sales pipeline. We're at our 15 minutes and we're happy you're here. Thanks for joining us. And if you're joining us on B2B Sales Lab this week, look for some hard-hitting content. If you're not a member, you should join now and check us out. For everybody else out there, happy selling.
That was a sharp episode because it cut through one of the most common sales myths, the belief that more leads automatically create better sales results. One idea that stood out was the discipline of shrinking the market instead of expanding it, because a focused lead list built around your real capacity, geography, service model, and best fit customers will almost always outperform a bloated list full of wishful targets. Kevin and Sean made it clear that sales success starts when you understand which companies you can serve well, which buyers are most likely to care, and which opportunities deserve your team's time. That kind of focus turns lead generation from random activity into a real sales management system. The significant action item from this episode is to identify your 5 best customers and interview them before you build your next lead list. Ask how they make money, where they lose money, what pressures are changing in their market, and why your solution made sense to them, because those answers will sharpen your ideal client profile and improve your messaging immediately. Do that today before the noise of the week takes over, because your best customers may already be holding the roadmap to your next best customers. If you ever need help with sales, sales management, or growing your company, reach out to Sean or Kevin. Their contact information is available in the show notes. You can also join the B2B Sales Lab, a community of salespeople and sales leaders built to help members get answers to real sales questions, find useful resources, and improve their odds of making quota. The link to the B2B Sales Lab is b-sales-lab.com. Make sure you subscribe to 2 Tall Guys Talking Sales on your favorite podcast player, and we'll be back with another practical sales conversation next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Happy selling!